Hello, Brad here, just to say we're super proud that the Friday 5pm podcast is sponsored by the Malt Miller, the UK's best home brew store.
We use the Malt Miller for all of our homebrew experiments, as well as tapping them up for advice and binging on their awesome YouTube channel all the time.
That's why whenever we release a homebrew video, we put a recipe kit live on the Malt Miller, so you can brew with the exact same amazing ingredients that we did. The same ingredients used by pro brewers.
So alongside the Malt Miller's nitro-flushed hops, cold-stored yeast and milled-to-order malts, you can pick up recipe kits for our 5 Points Best Bitter, Russian River West Coast IPA, and now the fastest beer in the world, a hazy session IPA that goes from grain to glass in less than 48 hours.
Sign up to their newsletter at tinyurl.com/Malt Miller to get 5% off your first order. With the Malt Miller's amazing customer service and Johnny's 48-hour recipe, you could order the ingredients on a Monday and be drinking the beer by the weekend.
Speaking of which, it's Friday.
It's 5pm.
So enjoy this week's Friday 5pm podcast. Good afternoon, beer geeks. It's Friday, it's 5pm, it's that time you've all been waiting for. Not your first beer, but the podcast from us two loons.
Yeah, that's it. It's, that's what everyone's waiting for. Not the quenching, delectable first beer of the weekend. It's listening to a couple of English guys talk waffle nonsense for 20 to 30 minutes. Perfect.
Exactly. When you put it like that, I can't believe we actually have hundreds of, occasionally thousands of listeners even. That it doesn't sound particularly appetizing. I've also been thinking recently, as the pubs have been opening up and the world's been opening up, I've been thinking about the fact that probably most of our listeners, or a lot of our listeners, probably work in hospitality and are therefore just starting the busiest time of their week.
Oh, that's a very good
So
point.
Really, do you know that famous club I think it's in South London called Church?
Oh, right. In Brixton? Okay.
Yeah, and it's like its busiest day is Monday because all the hospitality workers go there.
Right.
Or is it like Sunday night they finish work and they go to the club? So we should do a week where we do a Sunday 12 a.m.
Interesting
podcast for our hospitality listeners in respect and out of respect for what they do.
I like it. That would just require us just literally posting at a slightly different time in the day. Easy. We can do that.
Oh yeah, it wouldn't require any effort on our part, that particular dedication to the hospitality industry, which is, what all the best dedications involve. Just no thought, just a different button.
I feel like we've just dedicated this episode already, Johnny.
Oh, you think this is enough?
Yeah. Well, I don't know about enough, because obviously they're a bunch of absolute legends, but I feel like we've just sort of done a dedication right then.
There you go. That's all you're getting. Anyway, moving on. That came out of nowhere. That was not in our plan for the podcast.
What are you doing derailing the making a ramble chat? That's my job.
I made a huge mistake of starting a ramble chat on Twitter last night. Actually, I was just getting into bed and doing the doom scrolling as you do when you want to settle down, calm the brain, have a nice sleep. You go straight on Twitter and get furious. And I kept seeing endless talk in the British media about this supposed beer shortage in the UK. And I've seen it lots. It's not a beer shortage. There's no shortage of beer. There's a shortage of drivers because Brexit means none of the European drivers want to come over.
Yeah.
If they get a gig where they can drive within the EU, they're like, I'll do that because it takes what used to take 2 or 3 days now takes about a week. So really struggling for drivers, as well as the fact that I think it's 1.4 million people have deserted the UK after Brexit. And the British press keeps saying it's a beer shortage. It's like, no, it's a driver shortage. And B, you can still get amazing beer from independent craft breweries because, they use couriers and other methods or direct delivery, so there's no shortage there. But the pubs can't use them because we have this antiquated, out-of-date, entirely uncompetitive monopsony, which means basically there's only a couple of buyers, but there's loads of producers. And that's all produced by basically racketeering and profiteering of giant companies that are probably owned by mates of MPs. So I had a little rant about that and started quite the thing on Twitter. So
I mean, it's a
I'm
tale as old as time, isn't it? The rich people get richer. They sort of help their mates out. and they sort of pass laws that are more favourable to bigger businesses rather than smaller businesses, and instead of giving people a help up, they sort of give them a foot down in the face.
Kick people in the face as they're climbing the ladder. Yeah, that's basically what's been happening in the pub industry for the last 40 years. And now, fucking Tim Martin from Weatherspoons is a bit upset about it. Despite being so pro-Brexit, he printed the stuff on his goddamn beer mats. And now he's like, oh, I've got a beer shortage. I can't get any Coors Light because of a beer shortage. No, Tim, it's because you've got me going again.
He's a nasty piece of work, isn't he? Let's be honest. But let's not give him any more airtime. I don't want to give him any oxygen. He's a bastard.
Yeah. Don't drink in spoons unless it's an airport. That's exactly our ethical stance on it.
I feel like it's vaguely acceptable at 7:30 in the morning in an airport
outside
lounge.
Of normal licensed hours. You can drink in a spoons.
It's basically like an airport is almost like being at sea or something, where it's almost maritime law, where it's pirate life, and you're like, you can put all your morals to the side and just go and enjoy a probably not a great beer, but a beer at 7:30 in the morning with a pizza before you get on a flight. Oh, flights, Johnny. I miss those bastards. I wish I was flying somewhere. Yeah, I do. I kind of miss all of that stuff. Just traveling, even just traveling to get somewhere, which is kind of rubbish, but I kind of miss it.
Yeah, we got an email this week. I won't say the country or any of the breweries that are involved, but we got invited to an international location, and they were like, the only kicker is you've got to leave in 2 days' time.
Oh.
So we've gone from no trips to trips now.
Yeah.
So I
is that because it
declined.
was in a red zone or something?
No. I think just they'd got sign off,
right.
Or maybe it had gone from like red to amber or amber to green or something, and they were suddenly like, we can do this. But my response was, we can't do that. So we're not going to said location, Bradley. I'm afraid.
No, it's my sister's 40th birthday. Otherwise, I'd be absolutely fuming and livid.
We don't know the location.
Somewhere. I imagine it's somewhere amazing. To be honest, at this point, mate, I'd turn up for a wet weekend in Bognor Regis. I'm getting desperate for some hollybobs. Desperate for
apologies to the residents of Bognor Regis there.
Yeah,
I think it's quite nice. I think the name just does it no favours.
I think they give names Regis, right, because it's had a royal connection, right? So, Lyme Regis, Bognor Regis. I've run out of Regises, but the Regis is like Royal Borough of Greenwich, Royal Borough of Richmond, all that kind of jazz. It's because it's been bestowed upon it at some point in history. So, at some point in history, I mean, actually, do you know what? Bognor Regis is nice. I don't know what. It just sounded funny, which is why I chose it. But yeah, I haven't got anything against Bognor Regis. All power, more power to you. Up the Bognor, up your Bognor.
Don't oversell it. Up your Bognor. No, don't say that either. Shall we start the beer podcast at this point?
Go on then.
So the first thing we should have a chat about is the amazing success that was our live show with Unity Brew Co on Saturday.
Oh, dude, I thought it was awesome. Like, the beers were amazing. He's an absolute font of knowledge. And yeah, it was like super geeky. It was well geeky. The chit chat throughout the evening was.
It was. He messaged me after the show, and presumably after he'd seen the movie he was going to go see. So it was The Small Hours, saying, "Thank you, that was amazing." And then the next morning, I got one clearly under the, having a bit of hangover, existential dread. Said, like, I just watched a bit of it back, and I waffled. Why didn't you stop me? So that's that's also what I thought in the morning. I was like, that was a bit of a rambly one, but you're right. It was really geeky. It was lovely.
No, it's super geeky, man. I mean, I didn't get very geeky. I was just listening to it. It's just amazing. But yeah, I actually, he went to see People Just Do Nothing, big in Japan, the movie, which I've actually seen it 3 times now, Johnny. That is how much I've enjoyed this movie. I do have a cinema card. and I am single-handedly bringing back British cinema. I'm holding it up with my membership and my patronage because I just fucking love going to the cinema. So yeah, I've seen it 3 times. It's a great movie.
There you go, ringing endorsement. If you're having a wet weekend in Bognor Regis, then just head to the cinema and see people just do nothing. So thanks to everybody that watched the live show on Saturday. You can still watch it. There'll be a link in the show notes. You can watch that whenever you want, and indeed buy some beer from their web shop and then watch it whenever you want. But it was a great show. There's lots of technical bits, but also lots of lovely stories. Jimmy's whole side project all around seasonality, which has made provisions, is making some really wonderful beer. But I think Unity are going from strength to strength and making really great modern stuff as well. And I think if you haven't been to the tap room, it's well worth a trip as well. They fly slightly under the radar. Unity, but I don't know how long that's going to last. I think they're going to get the reputation they've long deserved very soon.
Defo. Yeah, I mean the beers are absolutely amazing, so it's got to be coming soon.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, that was pretty much all the beer drinking you and me did last week because we were tired from Hook Norton, our minds being repaired after being blown multiple times.
Yeah.
And I've just started editing through that footage, which has been. It's been really nice, and getting up at 4:30 in the morning was definitely worth it because those early shots while they're mashing in at 6:30 are just magic, Brad.
Beautiful.
Some of the most beautiful things we've ever committed to
camera.
We're
talking steamy, slow-mo, light pouring in through those ancient windows, all that stuff.
Exactly that, yeah. Golden hour, lots of steam, amazing. Lots of like brass wheels being turned and drenched Maris Otter malts cascading into tons.
I'll tell you what, mate. If Fred Dibner made beer videos on YouTube, this would be it, right? This is like proper full-on steampunk, sexual metal on metal action, and beautiful horses, majestic horses. Don't know where I'm going with this.
I'm not sure you're going anywhere, but I'm just letting it run.
Yeah. Just it's gonna be very select, Johnny. We're gonna get all kinds of deviants watching this. I tell you, mate, with all of that sort of.
There's one deviant on camera apparently because you are getting well into this.
No, I just think it's. I mean, that place is incredible. We talked about it last week, but my God. I don't think I've been to a more beautiful brewery. Maybe in different ways. Maybe I have, but it was one of the most special places I've been where beer is made. Amazing.
Yeah, and I hope our video can convey that and do it justice. I'll tell you what brewery does do it justice, and that is the Porter Brew, Bradley.
Oh, it's back in the manor, yeah.
It's back in service. I've got to tell you, it's been a bit of a nightmare. Well, you probably already know some of this because I've been WhatsApping you about the bit of the saga. But basically, the Porter Brew is now at my new house. But it took a while to get there, so I went down and collected all what I thought was all of the Grainfather equipment, thinking I could also fit the Porter Brew in my new estate car.
Yes.
You can't.
Oh.
The Porter Brew is massive, and one person can't lift it, really. I mean,
really?
I could lift
that
it.
Heavy?
Yeah,
wow.
two Simpsons pallets with
quite
a lot of
MDF
attached to it,
no,
and
chipboard,
then 4
MDF.
hefty wheels,
and
then a layer of paint. I'd say it weighs.
Paint, mate. We didn't use super light paint for carbon fibre bicycles, so that's what tipped it over the edge.
Yeah,
you're pretty strong.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for that damn paint, you would have been able to lift that up.
I'd have been able to lift it, yeah. No, but I think it's a good. I think it weighs a person at least.
No way. You reckon?
Yeah. I think it's 70-80 kilograms.
Jesus. Okay.
So what I had to do, it arrived via courier after I'd collected all the Grainfather stuff. Arrived via courier, and the guy just dumped it and ran. And I was like, it's cool. It's on wheels. So started wheeling it, and then I got to the bit that goes around the back of my house where I'd take the bins out, and of course remembered that that's not wide enough for a 1.2 metre pallet. So I tried to lift it. This is where I was going with this. And I could lift it for 5 or 6 paces, maybe.
Wow. Okay.
And then I'd need like a 2-minute break. So I was like, this is a 50-meter dash. And that's going to take me like an hour at this rate. So in the end, I rolled it.
Oh, yeah.
I rolled it end over end
Ooh.
down an alleyway.
Good job that thing's built, mate. Otherwise, you could have killed the portal brew. I bet you had the neighbourhood watch curtain twitching away at you, thinking, what are these
neighbourhood confused? Yeah, they must have been utterly baffled by what it was and where it was going. But it's now installed in my garden. The brakes are on the wheels, and tomorrow we're doing filming the brewing section of our next homebrew video, which is going to be our first kettle sour, and not only one kettle sour, but 2 kettle sours. Well, 1 kettle sour and 1 quick sour. And we're going to be adding fruit, we're going to be adding hops, and we're going to be doing something very special with both beers at the end, which we won't give the reveal for. That's going to be too much fun. But yeah, so I was on Twitter yesterday asking for advice, and I was asking, because I'm still not sold on which method. I asked, should I use Fiddy sour, kettle sour, or fermenter sour, which is where you transfer it to the fermenter, and then you pitch in some bacteria and then ferment it afterwards. Kind of thinking I'd get an answer from that, but it's almost a dead heat across all 3. So thanks for nothing, Twitter. Who'd have thought Twitter wouldn't be able to agree on something?
Oh,
you know? You really let us down there. I couldn't have seen it coming.
Do you own a skateboard, Johnny?
A skateboard?
Yeah.
No, but I know where you're going with this.
We need skateboard wheels on one side of it so we can move it vertically.
Yeah, that would have been really handy. So yeah, maybe that's the next upgrade.
Yeah,
and then it can go up walls
really
and
cool
stuff as well. Yeah, it would look.
I like it. We're going to get some skateboard wheels. Yeah.
I do have like a trolley, a wheeled trolley that I use for moving heavy stuff around, but the portal brew was too heavy for that, so it bent so badly that the metal of the trolley was on the floor along with the wheels.
Damn.
So that's how heavy it is.
That's upsetting.
Yeah. But yeah, so that's what I'll be doing tomorrow, and because it's a kettle sour, it will be souring over the weekend. So for the next 3 days, that grain father's going to be plugged in, keeping it at about 36 degrees. And then on Monday I'll finally boil it and add the hops and put it in a fermenter. So it's a very weird process. You know, I've talked about it a lot in craft beer, like, oh, it's a kettle sour. But as soon as you start planning for that, suddenly you realise what a commitment it is. And
you're brewing al fresco, aren't you, Johnny?
I'm brewing al fresco, yeah. So I'm hoping the weather's going to be all right.
Well, yeah. Do you think you should blow up your amazing inflatable tent and then brew within a tent?
I feel like that's a fire risk.
Is it a fire risk? I mean, there's no actual fire involved.
No, that's right.
It might make the video very odd. It's blue, isn't it, inside? So
it'll be a lot of colour balancing to do on that.
I reckon
here's my blue beer.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, man. Look, as I've already said, it's my sister's 40th birthday tomorrow, so I will not be able to make brew day, but it sounds amazing. So I'm quite envious. But yeah, you've got some interesting elements to this brew which we can't reveal right now. But yeah, I'm really excited. And then
lots and lots of bright red fruit going in. It's going to be
hell yeah,
an unusual video. I'm looking forward to it. Cool. So while we're on the topic of homebrewing, this week's video was the last in our series all about homebrewing tips from the amazing Andy Parker, who is the founder of Elusive Brew, a great little brewery near Reading in the UK. And we were at the Malt Miller, who sponsor all our homebrew stuff and deal with all our bizarre requests for ingredients and endless questions about process. So yeah, we were talking about fermentation this week, which, well, we get into it in the video, but it's probably the most important phase of the brewing process. And as some people pointed out in the comments, the packaging is probably the next most important. But obviously we all focus on the actual brew day because that's when the action happens from a human point of view. But yes, there's lots of tips in there about dry hopping, about getting healthy fermentations, about yeast choices, yeast nutrients, stuff like that, because most homebrews fall down when it comes to the fermentation. That's when most off flavors are going to be generated. So hopefully that's going to help you out. And we'd love you, if you haven't seen the video, give it a watch, or if you have, go back and ask us questions, because all the questions that we're getting, we're banking them, and we'll probably use them when we do another series, perhaps in like 6 months to a year's time, of slightly more advanced homebrew tips. So we'll slowly scale it up as we learn more and you will learn more.
Yeah, so that's a great idea, Johnny. I think we'll obviously collate all of those comments, and then when we get a little bit deeper down the rabbit hole, we'll wheel them out again on the Porter Brew with its skateboard wheels on the side. Mark II, much improved. It's going to be great.
Porter 2.
Porter 2. Oh! Yes, mate. I love it. Did you have any specific questions this week, Johnny, that you want to talk about?
Yeah, well, the one that caught my eye, because I thought we could address it quite quickly, and because I think it's a question that a lot of people ask, and it came from Sean Adams, which is just asking, should you bag the dry hops or just toss them in? What are the pros and cons? I mean, it's something I remember when I was first getting into homebrew, like 6 years ago. You were told to put them in bags and weigh them down, which is actually Beavertown used to. I don't know whether they still make it or have made it since, but they had a beer called Magic 8 Ball Rye. And it was called 8 Ball because Logan Plant, who founded the brewery, used to use pool balls to weigh his hops down in the bags. And so I've, just because of that story that he told me, I always assumed that you should use bags and you should weigh them down. And certainly, if you're not going to transfer into a second container before serving or packaging, then having it in a bag is really helpful, because it means you'll get less losses, you'll get less of that the hop compounds and the hop trub, all the trub basically, into your package. But using bags massively reduces the utilization of those hops, and particularly with the styles that a lot of people are making, i.e. IPAs, New England IPAs. That's really important. You want to extract as much character as you can out of those hops, and as quickly as possible, because you can extract all of the lovely juicy, piney, citrusy aromas without any of the vegetal, hot burny, less delicious flavors. So what I would say is you're actually better off not using bags if you can avoid it, and instead putting them in just as they are. You also decrease, actually, I think, a bit of the chance of infection as well, because sometimes those bags are a little bit hard to clean. So yeah, just toss them in. Just toss them in, and if you need to put it into a secondary before bottling or kegging or anything, then do that, especially if you can purge that second space and make sure there's no oxidation, because you're going to get a lot more character out of it. And less chance of infection, just more chance of oxidation. So if your processes are great, you're always going to just toss them in. If your processes aren't so good, or you're just getting into it and you want it a little bit easier, bag it, hop tea it.
Nice.
Yeah,
and,
so I thought that was a great question, and one that everyone's asking, so hopefully that clears it up.
Should I still add the pool balls, Johnny, even if I lose the bag? What do you reckon?
Well, if sorry, I thought if you meant you weren't going to use bags, I was like, no, at that point, you're just throwing balls into your beer.
That was what I was saying. But either or. I mean, I quite like the idea of putting pool balls in a beer. It seems like very Omnipollo sort of like pool ball flavoured beer or something.
Even they haven't done well. I was going to say, Lervig have put money in beer.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what that was adding. Well, it was adding marketing. That's what it was doing. But no, don't put pool balls in if you don't have to. No. That's my hot homebrewing tip.
Good stuff. And keeping it on a hoppy theme, Johnny. I had a comment from a little while ago from our common beer off flavors video from Joe Dahl, which said, "Yeah, hop burn really sucks. Actually, I quite enjoy some hop burn." And I thought that was interesting in because there are some people out there that enjoy a little bit of pain, whether they're eating a hot curry or in their sort of bedroom life or whatever. They're into sort of weird shit, Johnny.
Just love stubbing their toe on their bed. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I can't understand these people that love heartburn. I mean, it feels like heartburn, but the
Yeah.
kind of heartburn that's in your mouth, throat, and chest.
I mean, it's not great. I don't think it's great either, to be honest. And I'm a man that in my life has suffered from quite bad heartburn on some occasions, and it is horrible. So why anyone would want to experience that when they're drinking delicious beer, I don't know. And I certainly wouldn't seek it out, that's for sure.
I think it's a symptom of a couple of things. One, I think some people's palates are just fucked, and they just need to feel something. I think a more likely reason is, and I've heard, pretty reputable beer geeks talking about this, which is, they're like, it gives structure and finish to the beer, having burn, which, my response would be just add bitterness. I think it's just a symptom of New England IPA removing so much bitterness that there's no finish on these beers often. And so people are like, oh, well, there's a nice bit of hot burn at the finish. And you're like, just have bitterness. That's what bitterness is there for. It's there to add structure and to add finish and to add a crescendo to a beer. That's what bitterness adds. Why? I don't think any brewer is purposefully putting hot burn in. So if it's there, it's a flaw. And if you're trying to claim that it's adding structure, then you need to taste the West Coast beer and see what actual structure is. And also, all brewers should be adding, in my opinion, 40 to 50 IBUs even to their New England IPAs, or else there is no finish. But I do get it, like hot curries and hot burn. Maybe there is a link there. Maybe people who love hot burn are also the kind of people that order the Files, the Vindaloos, and stuff like that. And all power to them. If that makes them feel like they're living, then good on them. There's a lot of very green beer out there. Go drink it all, so that we don't have to.
Nice.
Yeah. So yeah, no judgment here. Just more questions, basically. More questions about these people. So we've got a question for the week as well. It's from the same source as last week. As you may remember, Jordan wrote us an essay. And we tackled the second question first because there was an article. That one was all about the meaning of IPA. And there was a great article last week just on that, so we covered that. This time we're going to tackle the first section of the odyssey that is Jordan's email. I'm going to read it verbatim until we get bored. Should we go with that?
Go for it.
Hi guys, great content. Thank you for opening my eyes to the world beyond craft pale ales, IPAs, and the odd cask. I've recently discovered a love of lagers, from the proper German Helles to the Metzens and my box to the brilliance of Lost and Grounded, Don Zoco, and Utopian here in the UK. But now I've moved on to exploring Belgium, and I'm stuck with storing. So, Jordan is buying things like Orval, Saison Dupont, Driefontein and Gers he's got, and he's wondering what temperatures he should put it in. And he also says, and I have heard of corks drying out, but he says, I've also heard things about the cork of a Gers drying out if you put it in the fridge. So yeah, he wants advice on storing locations and temperatures for different styles. So the really simple answer is this. If you want the beer to stay the same, get it in the fridge. There's no other place for it. If you want to age the beer, you want it to change, then put it at cellar temperature. Cellar temperature is between 10 and 14 degrees. If you're storing anything warmer than that, that's not ideal. But obviously it happens. I store stuff more than that because I don't have room to keep everything at 14 or below. But if it is warmer than 14, then don't age it. Drink it as soon as you can. So yeah, fridge for stuff you want to stay the same. Lagers, IPAs, or even, Gers if you want it to taste young and fresh and vibrant. If you want to age it out, get some oxidation, some sherry, round out the last of the bitterness, all that kind of stuff. Then store it between 10 and 14, which probably means a garage. If you live in a hot country, it will mean a fridge still. But luckily, that's not an issue for us or for Jordan. In terms of corks drying out, unless you're going to be aging it for 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years, the corks are great. They're fine. Don't let these stories on the internet worry you. It's very unlikely you're going to be aging this stuff long enough for the corks to degrade.
So it's sort of a bit of a note on that, Johnny. If the cork dries out, does that mean that gases and liquids can pass through it or around it because it gets smaller? Or
yeah, if the cork dries out too much, it gets smaller and you'll start to lose carbonation.
Yeah.
And you'll start to gain oxidation.
Oxidation and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So some people say lie them on their side. I'd say lie them on their side if you're going to keep them for 10 years. Otherwise, definitely keep them upright.
Yeah.
Because then you're only oxidizing the tiny bit of liquid. Just the bit in the neck.
Yeah.
So that's my suggestion to you, Jordan, and to everybody. And we've got a video about should I age this beer, to which the answer is probably not. And I'll put a link to that in the show notes as well. But we give some advice on storage if you do want to age it. But most beer is released when it is for a reason. It's because the brewer thinks it's tasting right. So very few beers actually improve with age. So get them down you.
Good advice, Johnny, for a Friday evening. Get them down you.
Oh, that's a nice way to end, Bradley. Yeah. Oh. So that's the end of this week's podcast. Get it down, you boys and girls. That's what we're going to be doing this evening. Brad's off to a 40th birthday party, and it's my 1-year wedding anniversary this weekend. So,
mate, congrats.
I'll be having some beers to celebrate that. So yeah, I hope whatever you guys have planned, you have a wonderful time, and we'll see you on Wednesday for a video that has been inspired by our Discord community this week. So enjoy that, and a big shout out to all our Patreons that helped out. Love and beer. The Bubble and Friday 5pm podcasts are brought to you by the nerds behind YouTube's craft beer channel. You can watch over 400 mini documentaries at youtube.com/the craft beer channel. And if you love what we do, support us via Patreon and get access to merchandise and our amazing Discord forum, a positive and welcoming space for everyone who loves beer, food and homebrewing. Love and beer.